Hello, Curious. As we get closer to the day of Joe Biden's inauguration, there is all the more talk about his family. Here is both sides of the coin, some just getting the most information out there about who the new president is, and some who are trying to dig up some dirt on the man and his family. And this time it seems it is his love life that has come under fire. Jill Biden's ex-husband has come out to say certain things that might not show the seemingly perfect couple Joe and Jill in the perfect light where their relationship is concerned. How does Biden's first wife Neilia, who tragically passed away in a car accident, play into this? When exactly did the president-elect get together with his second wife? And what does her ex-husband Bill Stevenson threaten to expose in a book he is working on now? Stay with us until the very end to find out, but before we continue, don't forget to hit the bell and subscription button so you don't miss any of our videos. Let's start by talking a little bit about Joe's first wife. Neilia Hunter was born on July 28, 1942 in the affluent town of Skaneateles, New York. Her parents were successful diner operators. It was in 1963, when she was a college sophomore at Syracuse University, that she had met Mr. Biden, who was a junior at the University of Delaware. According to The Independent, the pair had met on the beach in Nassau during spring break vacation. Fun fact for you curious, when Joe met his future wife's mother for the first time and she asked him what his career goals were, he allegedly simply replied with President. Once he had finished his bachelor's degree in Delaware, Biden moved to Syracuse for law school, where Neilia continued her education by getting a master's degree in English, as well as a job teaching special needs students. The two of them would go on to get married on August 27, 1966, while Joe was still at school. After he had graduated, the Bidens moved from Syracuse to Wilmington, Delaware, where he joined the Newcastle County Council, thus starting his career in politics. The couple had 3 children together: Joseph Robinette, who was known as Beau, Robert Hunter, who most referred to by his second name, and daughter Naomi Christina, whom they called Amy. As Joe began to get more involved in politics and campaigned to unseat the US Senator from Delaware, his family, friends, and business partners, more on which in a moment, were by his side and supported him in all his endeavors, especially his wife Neilia, who was described by the News Journal as the brains of his campaign. And thanks to all that help, Biden was able to unseat J. Caleb Boggs from his seat as a senator and take over the position, a move that shocked many, as at that time it seemed that Boggs was unbeatable. Not only was this one of the biggest political shocks at the time, but had also made Joe the youngest US senator at the time. Though it was then, while he was at his temporary office in Washington, D.C., several days before Christmas, that the family had to come and face a tragedy. On December 18, 1972, Neilia had taken the children to go and do some Christmas shopping, and it was then that the family station wagon had pulled right into the path of a tractor-trailer, which allegedly, according to reports at the time, was going at full speed and collided with the Biden vehicle. As first responders arrived at the scene, the 2 Biden boys were quickly rushed to Wilmington General Hospital, where, while their condition seemed serious at first, they managed to pull through and get better. However, unfortunately, it was too late for 30-year-old Neilia and 13-month-old Naomi, who had passed away at the scene of the accident. As the police had later determined, Neilia had accidentally driven into the path of the tractor and didn't see it coming at all. Though such an event was enough to change Joe's life forever, in his book Promises to Keep, he reflected on the fact that he knew something terrible had happened as he watched his sister pick up the phone, despite the fact that when she had approached him, she just said there had been a slight accident and that they had to go back home. In a speech at Yale University years later, he described the accident as something that had altered his life forever. In the beginning, Joe had even considered quitting politics, though his friends helped convince him to change his mind. With his sons still in the hospital, he continued to care for them and was even officially sworn into office in said hospital at his sons' bedsides. After the accident, Valerie, his sister, had moved in with her older brother and his 2 sons in Wilmington to help look after them, while Joe would commute to Washington for work every single day. Speaking on his decision to make that same trip every single day, he replied that it was because he needed his sons more than they needed him, and that he wanted to be able to kiss them goodnight and in the morning the next day. Focusing on work and his children was what helped to get him through the tragedy. That is until a new love had appeared in his life. 3 years after the tragic accident, Joe decided to give love another try and allowed his brother Frank to set him up on a blind date. That is when he met 24-year-old college senior Jill Jacobs. In an interview with Vogue magazine, the First Lady-to-be spoke with reporters about that first meeting and said that when she saw him arrive, she took one look at him and said, "Oh God, this is never going to work." However, as the date progressed, the two hit it off quite well. She also recalled that once they got back, he walked her home, he simply shook her hand, and once Jill was inside, she called her mother at 1 a.m. as she stressed to tell her that she had finally met a gentleman. As love blossomed between the two, as things usually go, Joe decided to take their relationship to the next level. However, it was easier said than done, as Jill had to reject him 5 times. But she had a good reason for it. In the same Vogue interview, she also touched upon the topic and said that each time he asked, she would say not yet. Her reason for it was simple. She had really fallen in love with Joe and his sons, and it was those boys who she had in mind when making the decision. She wanted to make sure that their their relationship was going to work 100% because, from her point of view, the boys had already lost their mother and she didn't want them to have to lose another mother figure. Though as you are aware, curious, ultimately Jill would go on to finally say yes, and the pair got married on June 17, 1977 at the United Nations Chapel and had their wedding reception lunch at Sign of the Dove in New York City. At the time, Jill also continued working on her master's degree, which she had completed while pregnant with their daughter, and so, on June 8, 1981, the couple welcomed the only child together, Ashley Blazer. After her birth, Mrs. Biden took 2 years off work to focus on raising the children. While both Bo and Hunter had called her mom, she had never officially adopted them. Through all his political campaigns and challenges, from that moment on, Jill was always by Joe's side, supporting him the best that she could. While many often say that Obama's had the most amazing love story and are Americans' happiest couple, many are now pointing out that with their 40+ years of marriage, the Bidens could now give them a run for their money. If you want to know more about the love story between Barack and Michelle, then be sure to click on the link above, but for now, stay with us because we have some interesting news that could change things. However, there is one person that claims that all that the Bidens tell the press and their followers is just a perfectly fabricated story, and that person is none other than Jill's ex-husband. Yes, for those of you who might not know, she was married prior to getting together with Joe. According to J Post, the two had married back in February 1970. Her then husband was Bill Stevenson, a former college football player. Though their relationship was short-lived as the two ended up divorcing just after 5 years, and it is Stevenson that is now claiming that the stories that the Bidens say are nothing more than a lie. He claims that the fact that the two met on a blind date is nothing more than a lie. According to him, they had known each other long before the tragic accident that had taken Neilia's life. Allegedly, they had both met during his campaign to become senator, which led to them having an affair. Stevenson had first made these claims in August last year during an interview with Delaware media outlet WDEL. As per Stevenson's claims, he and Jill had first got to know Joe when he was a councilman in Newcastle, Delaware. Bill said that he had asked Biden for help to obtain a license to sell high-percentage beverages. He had also added that he threw a fundraiser for Joe that raised between $2,500 to $3,000. He commented on how he felt betrayed by the two of them, as he claimed Joe was his friend and Jill, naturally, his wife. The first time that he had known something was wrong was when his wife had refused to go with him to meet Bruce Springsteen and said that Joe had asked her to keep an eye on the boys. He continued and added that the breaking point for him was when a man came into a bar and asked him to pay the damages for a fender bender that involved Jill. But the man had informed him that she wasn't the one driving it, but rather it was Senator Biden. Stevenson explained that it was the final straw for him and that on the same day he told Jill she needs to get out of his house. The Biden campaign had denied all of Stevenson's claims and the accounts that he had gave to multiple media outlets, according to the Washington Times. Though this is not stopping the man from getting his story out there, as according to many reports he is currently working on a tell-all book where he wants to tell his life story and which would also contain the alleged truth about the Bidens and focusing on their alleged affair which happened when Joe was still married to Neilia. So curious, what do you think about that? Are the Bidens America's next top couple after the Obamas? Did you know that Jill Biden was married before she met Joe? Whose story do you think is true? And do you think anything in it could be harmful to his presidency? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.